All right, so here's some notes on variation problems. All right, so we might have a problem that says y varies directly with x. And the way you would write that is y equals k times x. I'll get back to this k in a minute. That's varying directly. It means both of them, one's on the left-hand side, one's on the right-hand side. But the way to view this is if x increases, if x gets larger and larger, then y also gets larger and larger. That means varying directly. As x gets bigger and bigger, y gets bigger and bigger. You could also have something that says y varies directly with the second power of x. And the way I would write that is y equals k times x to the second power. You might also have something that says y varies directly with cube root of x. And then we would write that as y equals k times the cube root of x. So see how I'm making equations out of all of this, of all these words? And let's stop right now and let's talk about k. K is called your constant of variation. Okay, and it's different for every different situation. And the way I like to think about it, let's go back to this first one here of just y varying directly with x. Okay, an example I like to use is if x is the amount of calories I consume, like I'm eating Halloween candy or something like that, as I eat more and more calories, then my weight might increase. But it's going to increase differently for different people. It depends on your metabolism, how much you exercise, and all of those kinds of things are in your constant of variation. So if I eat 5 pounds of candy, heaven forbid, that means I'm not going to gain directly 5 pounds. So that's just an example of, I like to think about how something varies directly. Now let's talk about varying indirectly. So I can have y varies indirectly, and sometimes this is called varies inversely, or indirectly proportional. All these words might mean the same thing. Okay, so y varies indirectly with x, and then that's going to look like this. Y varies, well, now it's indirect, so x is in the denominator. And let's go back to our example of thinking if x increases, that means my denominator is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, then y is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And to think of a real life example of this, let's take this candy bar eating example and change it a little bit. So suppose that x means the amount of minutes I exercise. So as my exercising increases, hopefully my weight is going to decrease and decrease and decrease. So there's an example of something varying indirectly or inversely proportional. Let's do make up another example. So we're going to have y vary indirectly as the fourth power of x. And that equation would look like this. Y equals k over x to the fourth power. And let's squeeze one more in here. Y varies indirectly as the 4/5 power of x, and that would look like this. Y equals k over x to the 4/5 power. Okay, so that's all about how to decipher these wordings that you get with direct and indirect. Let's go ahead and do an example now and see how this works. So I have a new example that says suppose y varies directly as the second power of x. When x equals 3, y equals 10.8, find y when x equals 1.5. First step, we're going to make an equation, and we're just going to take into account this directly, something varies directly, and something varies as the second power. Okay, so it says y varies directly, so that's going to look like this, as the second power of x, so I'm going to put a little square there. Okay. Second step, I'm going to solve for k. And the way I solve for k is I put in this one piece of information right here. This says when x is 3, y is 10.8. So we have 10.8 equals k times 3, and remember 3 is squared. So 3 squared is 9, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. And when you do that on your calculator, you will get 1.2. So k, my constant of variation for this example, is 1.2. Third step, let's find y when x is 1.5. Well, my k is 1.2, so let's use that. And then x is 1.5. Don't forget to square it. And when you do that and calculate that out, you get 2.7. So y is 2.7. So this is the end of the lesson on variation.